It's been even cooler than I could possibly have dreamed or imagined.
This movie is an epic adventure with a love story and a coming of age all in one.
It's a really enjoyable, fantastical adventure film.
It's a proper feel-good movie.
I love fairy tales. I loved fairy tales when I was a kid. And then I got to be an adult. I still loved fairy tales, only nobody seemed to be writing them for me anymore. I remember what it was like when I was 20 and I found William Goldman's book, The Princess Bride, before they'd ever made a film of it. And I remember the delight of reading that book and going, look, somebody's written a fairy tale for adults. So that really was my agenda. I thought, let me see if I can do something with Stardust that would give people that little sense of magic that is obviously aimed not at children, but at adults. I remember two initial creative sparks for Stardust. My wife and I had left the children behind and we'd gone for a week driving through Ireland. And I was just begun to write Sandman at that point. And we drove through Ireland, and somewhere in Cork, I drove past a field, and there was a beautiful wall, and there was a hole in the wall. And you could just sort of see this wonderful little foresty thing beyond it. And I looked and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if just a wall and just a hole in the wall away is fairyland, is everything you've ever dreamed of. It was 1992, and I was in Tucson, Arizona, out in the desert, with this amazing dark blue, indigo-colored velvet sky. I watched a star fall, this twinkling, diamond-like thing blazing as it fell. And I stood there and I watched it fall and I thought, you could go and find that. Suddenly it came together with the whole idea of wall. And I thought, if it fell on the wrong side of the wall, it wouldn't be a meteorite. It wouldn't be a lump of meteoric rock. It would be a girl. And I had the story. Charles Vess and I had just won the World Fantasy Award for a Sandman story, Sandman 19. It was the first time a comic had ever won a major literary award. And Charlie, I found the party he was at. He came out, he was celebrating. He was carrying a bottle of champagne. And I said, can I tell you a story? And he said, sure. And I said, okay. And I just told him the setup for Stardust. And he said, when do I start drawing? I went out and I bought a fountain pen. And it was my first fountain pen that I'd had since I was at school. And I bought a large leather-bound notebook and I wrote Stardust on page 1 and I turned it over and I started writing the story. From 1994 to 1998, I was writing Stardust. Nobody owned it but me. I'd write a chapter or two and I'd send it to Charles Vess, who was the artist who was illustrating it, and he'd draw it. And that was it. That was the ownership of Stardust. I don't think of myself as a fantasy writer. If I think of myself as anything, I think of myself as a storyteller. I suppose that the majority of what I've written in one way or another comes under the heading of fantasy, as long as you stretch your definition of fantasy widely enough that it takes in horror at one end, science fiction at the other, classical fantasy in the middle and realistic fiction occasionally, and little sort of gouts and bobbits from time to time. But really, what I am is just somebody, I love making up stories. I love telling people stories.